Welcome to the Jaybefaunt channel. I am your host, James Fauntleroy. So good to see all of you here today with this breaking news that we're going to be bringing out to you. Just to let you guys know, the Jaybefaunt channel is also part of Revolutionary Blackout Network, so you can find me there on Sundays for the JB show and Thursdays for the Savvy and JB show. If you guys have not already, please go ahead and give a like to the stream so I can be able to reach more people and be able to spread the information, as well as help to activate and encourage people to do more on the ground themselves. Also, if you guys would like to, you guys can also subscribe to my Substack at jaybefaunt.substack.com. Gives you email notifications whenever I go live, upload clips like this, or write any articles. And if you guys would like to, you guys can also get any reactions out of me. You guys, if you want me to do video reactions, you guys can do it through QBounty at qbounty.com/JBFaunt. So why are we here? Of course, if you guys have read from the thumbnail and the title, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is a very serious thing that has broke over the last less than 24 hours ago. We're going to be talking about it. Joe Biden's cancer diagnosis. So this is something that had just recently came out within the last 24 hours. And I think that this is an important topic to cover, especially given the healthcare disparities that we have within this country today. So one of the things that we're going to get to is that one of the things I want to cover is the initial diagnosis that has actually happened and how aggressive it is. So I'm going to share this clip right now, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
Breaking news is former President Joe Biden has been diagnosed with what they're calling an aggressive form of prostate cancer, which has spread to his bones. This is according to his personal office. They just announced this. The 82-year-old former president's office says Biden and his family are now reviewing treatment options with his physicians. CNN senior White House reporter Betsy Klein is joining us now. And Betsy, obviously a lot of questions around this. What do we know right now?
Certainly, Jessica, a lot of questions going forward, but we know from the personal office of former President Joe Biden that the former president has been diagnosed with what they are describing as an aggressive form of prostate cancer that has metastasized to his bones. I want to read you a full statement from the former president's personal office. It says, last week, President Joe Biden was seen for a new finding of a prostate nodule after experiencing increasing urinary symptoms. On Friday, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer characterized by a Gleason score of 9 with metastasis to the bone. While this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. The statement goes on to say that Biden and his family are reviewing treatment options with his physicians. Of course, former President Biden, at 82 years old, made history as the oldest sitting U.S. president. And there were so many concerns and scrutiny about his physical fitness to serve another 4 years, ultimately leaving the president to make the decision back in July of 2024 to drop out of the presidential race. Of course, he has contended that he believes he was indeed fit to serve. And I want to.
So let's stop there for a second and let's examine this. So according to the doctors, is that the cancer has metastasized. So according to here, and I just want just so that everybody knows what metastatic cancer is. This is from the Canadian Cancer Society. Actually, let me share my screen so that you guys can also read it along with me, because I want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what this means, because a lot of times we hear these type of words and then we're just like, what does that mean? So this is out of the Canadian Cancer Society. What is metastatic cancer? And it says, and let me just enlarge so you guys can read it accurately. So it says metastatic cancer is a cancer that has spread from where it started to another part of the body. The original cancer is called the primary tumor. The cancer in another part of the body is called metastatic cancer. Metastatic cancer has the same type of cancer cells as the primary cancer. For example, when colon cancer spreads to the liver, the cancer cells in the liver are the colon cancer cells. It is metastatic colon cancer, not liver cancer. Metastatic also is called metastatic tumors or disease. Metastasis, or one cancerous tumor. Metastases, more than one cancer tumor, and advanced cancer. So here's the thing. A lot of times people are questioning now is the fact that it took this time to metastasize. One of the questions is, how long did Joe Biden know that he had prostate cancer? Because the thing is, we did not know he had prostate cancer at all. And when he was during the administration, before he left office on January 20th. So you think, a doctor's appointment, maybe back in November or December, which is about between 6 to 7 months ago, he would have had a checkup from a doctor. Remember, this guy is 82 years old. So, of course, checkups should be a lot more regular at that age, especially than somebody who is a healthy 36, 37 years old, right? So then they should have been monitoring, especially with things like prostate cancer, because according to a lot of doctors in the medical field, I heard one doctor say, if every single male lives long enough, they will develop prostate cancer. That being said, of course, men who are older, you have to look and examine the prostate a lot more often, because you have to check to make sure if they're going to get prostate cancer or not. With that being said, my question is, how long did Joe Biden know that he had prostate cancer? Because if it's metastasized already, that means that it has had been developing over time. And if it's been developing over time, then that means it should have been caught early. Remember, he was the president of the United States. He had the best health care. He literally had doctors in the White House. So therefore, they should have known. They should have known that it is. And it's an aggressive form of cancer that is metastasized. Somebody ain't telling the truth. And this also kind of explains why he actually dropped out as well back in July. And gave, basically christened Kamala Harris to be the new Democratic nominee. Because he honestly, if it wasn't a health issue, then he shouldn't have dropped out. But he did. Why? If cognitively thought he was sharp, if physically he thought he was okay, then why drop out? So let's continue on this, because that is the part where it makes me look at it with a side eye. Let's continue this.
Read to you a little bit from a letter from his former physician, Dr. Kevin O'Connor, who said in a letter back in February of 2024 that Biden was fit for duty. He has sleep apnea, which is being treated. He has non-valvular atrial fibrillation. He's being treated for high cholesterol, as well as acid reflux and seasonal allergies. Of course, we have asked the White House, the Trump administration, as well as a spokesperson for Dr. Biden, the First Lady, for comment and reaction to this concerning news. Some signs of optimism, of course, that this type of prostate cancer can be responding to, it says it appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. But again, quite concerning that it has indeed spread to his bones. Now, the former president has maintained a relatively low profile since leaving office in January, but we have started to see him reemerge on the world stage.
Let's go back to that. Okay. So it says President Biden cancer diagnosis. So according to this, it says an aggressive form of prostate cancer. So it's an aggressive form of prostate cancer and has spread to his bones. So remember what we just looked at about metastasizing, right? So that means that it started in the prostate and it spread to his bones. So therefore, it's pretty bad. It's a pretty aggressive form of cancer. It says appears hormone sensitive, allowing for effective management. That doesn't mean that he will go into remission. It just means that he's able to manage the cancer at his age and stage of life. But again, for it to reach this level, of aggression and to metastasize means that he has had to have had this cancer for a while now, at least 6 months. Therefore, meaning that he should have gotten a checkup before he left the White House, and they would have known this. I am willing to bet that they probably knew about this cancer probably going back more than a year ago. But because he's the president and because he wants to maintain this facade of health, of being healthy, because he doesn't want it to risk it politically, then no, they don't want him to go in to get any type of chemo, radiation, or hormone therapy, because look, there is a huge magnifying glass on you when you're the president. So therefore, reporters are everywhere looking. And then on top of that, you got people who leak stuff from the White House, of course, right? Because, you know, these reporters, they have sources. So then if that gets out, then next thing you know, by the time the primary starts, well, there really was no primary, but that would have pushed even harder for a presidential primary. The president has prostate cancer. We don't know how long he's going to have if it doesn't, you know, and at the time it probably didn't metastasize, right? But now that it's to the point that it metastasized, now it's like, oh, well, we gotta tackle this now. We can't cover it up no more. And so I honestly do think that they were hiding the fact that he had cancer. I do think that they knew, but they just didn't want to let the public know because it was a political move to make him seem like he was fit for office, when in reality, he wasn't. Because ultimately, the powers that be needed to carry him through to stay the president so that he could continue to do the work for the corporate dictators, for the Zionist state, for the oligarchs. And it was either a choice between him, who was keeping the system going, but he was keeping it going with decorum, or you have Donald Trump, who could keep the system going, but he could keep the system going even though he doesn't have the decorum, and he sings like a canary, right? And so instead they were like, okay, let's switch him out with Kamala Harris, because at least she'll keep it quiet, right? But she'll keep the system going. She'll be a good a lapdog for the system. And so therefore they didn't really have to worry about Joe Biden that much anymore, because now he's no longer the president, or he became essentially a lame duck president. So therefore they didn't have to worry about, you know, trying to wheel him through, so to speak, into the presidency. But now we're figuring out that the powers that be, they were wanting him to keep it quiet just in case. Just in case they said, well, we need him to keep quiet so that we can push him through. What if Joe Biden never dropped out? What if he never switched with Kamala Harris? What if he stayed in the race? What if he won against Trump again? What if he's the president again in his second term? And then we found out that his prostate cancer has spread to his bones. That fact that he had prostate cancer. What about that? How would it be? Right? So that is something I think that is, it just lets you know that the system will do everything it can to keep its players in place so that they can keep this exploitative system going. And Joe Biden is not the head of the snake, right? Joe Biden is really just a middle manager trying to keep things in place for the oligarchs, for the corporate dictators. And so if their guy gets sick, then they have to maintain this facade so that they can keep him in place until they find somebody to replace him, which they did. So that's what's going on with Joe Biden. One thing I also want to bring up is there was a analysis, I would say, an analysis from a physician. So this is a thread that I just want to read really quick. And this is from Sputnik. They said, was Biden's cancer a cover-up from healthy in July 2024 to bone metastasis today? Prostate cancer doesn't work like that. So it says Russian top oncologist drops a bombshell analysis. It says core claim prostate cancer is slow. It says 90% of men over 80 have microtumors. Normally, it takes years to metastasize. I'm going to repeat that again. They say, this is from an oncologist. It says it takes years to metastasize. That's why I'm very skeptical about it. Oh my God, we just discovered he had prostate cancer. Oh my God, we just discovered it metastasized and it went to his bones. Really? And he gets regular checkups from the White House doctor? Huh. That's funny. Because a doctor, especially a general practitioner, especially when you get to the age of 40 and up, oh, they're checking that prostate, baby. They're checking it. And if they find a lump, a nodule, something, oh, we got to get this checked out. Meaning that they had to have known. I don't believe for 1 second that they didn't know at all. They knew something. I also believe that Joe Biden also knew. She knew. But of course, they had to keep it quiet. Let's continue on. It says aggressive cases are rare at this age. So Russian professor Alexander Sirikov explains, says, yeah, Biden went from a clean bill of health to stage 4 in months. That's a red flag. It says medical proof, key red flags. PSA level must be monitored, especially for President of the United States. White House doctors failed multiple scans. 3, bone metastasis didn't appear overnight. This is either criminal negligence or deliberate concealment. I'm leaning on the latter. It says political context. Remember, Biden skipped the 2024 physical before dropping out. White House released 0 PSA test results. Let me see. Military hospital protocols were violated. And then the last one, throw back to Biden's brother revealed truth. In an interview with CBS, Frank Biden confirmed what many suspected. Joe's withdrawal wasn't just political. Serious health concerns forced him out, with the family aware of a looming cancer battle. Let's listen to this, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
CBS News had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's 2 younger brothers. And here's what he told us. He said, I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a genuine hero. Country over self. It sounds corny in our cynical political environment, but he nor I are cynical. The goal remains the same: defeat Trump and continue the work that Joe has done. My hope is that our party rallies around this heroic act. We asked him whether he feels that his brother's overall health and vitality played a major role in this decision. And he says, in my humble opinion, absolutely. So a member of the president's family now confirming that the president's health was indeed a major factor in this decision, and calling his brother a hero for making the decision to pass the torch to Kamala Harris.
So if his health wasn't in question, he wouldn't have dropped out. And yet, there you go. So he knew something. Oh, Joe knew, but he didn't want you guys to know so that you would still vote for him, so that you would still push him through to the presidency once again, so he could be that middle manager for the oligarchs, so he could be that middle manager for the corporate dictators. Because the corporate dictators, they're fine with Trump, but he talks too much. They were better off with Biden because at least he could keep things on the hush, right? Let's continue.
So Nancy, sorry, can you clarify that the family is saying his health was or was not a factor?
He's saying that in his humble opinion, yes, the president's health and vitality played a considerable role in his decision. It's important to note Frank Biden is not speaking for the family writ large. This was simply a conversation between CBS News and Frank Biden. Unclear how much input he had in this decision, but he says that he believes that his brother's health did play a role, and he says that the goal remains the same: to defeat Donald Trump.
Well, that is notable because to date, the family, the White House, the establishment has rejected the premise that there was anything that was challenging the president's mental acuity or his health, and that all these accusations were baseless, that it was just age and a few, difficult nights like he had on the debate stage. So that is a change in message.
Yeah. So we realized that was bullshit. So, of course, with any type of cancer diagnosis, it's seen as a harrowing thing to have to go through. But unfortunately for people like Joe Biden, he's a war criminal. Joe Biden, of course, has, praised segregationists, racists in his past. He was also one of the people who was, authored the 94 crime bill, which contributed to mass incarceration in his country, particularly among Black men. Of course, he was also one of the chief cheerleaders for the Patriot Act, which also causes the U.S. government to have overreach when it comes to our privacy as citizens. The reason why you cannot claim bankruptcy for your student loans is because of people like Joe Biden. You also have the sexual assault accusations by Tara Reade that happened in the early 1990s. When he's being accused of sexually assaulting her, which she has, very specific details, and she has maintained a consistency with those details as well. And then at the very latest as well, he also oversaw and greenlit a 21st century Holocaust that has killed hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands of Palestinians within the region. So therefore, that's 5 things I just mentioned. Okay. Not to mention on top of all the other things that Joe Biden has done that has been horrible. And so some people may say, well, he has dementia. He's not the same person that he was before. Look, the same guy that said if there was no Israel, the United States will have to create an Israel to protect her interests is the same guy that has done the same thing to protect the United States interests by holding up the Zionist state of Israel to the tune of well over 100,000 lives that have been ended because of Joe Biden allowing the Israeli government to, commit a genocide of these people. That's the same guy. Nothing has changed. Joe Biden has not improved. And he also will not apologize for his policies that have damaged not just people abroad, but those of us here. We as Black Americans should have utter disdain for people like Joe Biden. We should have utter disdain. And I'm gonna be honest with you, for a lot of people, especially those of us who are on the left, especially a lot of Black people on the left, what we're experiencing right now with Joe Biden is Schadenfreude. And it's really just somebody who has done terrible things in his life, and now he's getting his comeuppance. That's basically what it is. Now, I'm not going to sit here and be like, party, celebrate. But my thing is I'm going to say, and today it would be the 100th birthday of Malcolm X. So happy birthday, Malcolm X. Chickens have come home to roost. Karma is a motherfucker. And it has came to Joe Biden. I want to go on a classic. I want to remind you who Joe Biden is, because I want you guys to know that Joe Biden is the same guy that said this. Not only is he a war criminal, but he's also an asshole. Let me share with you guys this. This was back in 2020.
Other candidates, this kind of question, veto question. Let's flash forward. Your president, Bernie Sanders, is still active in the Senate. He manages to get Medicare for all through the Senate in some compromised version, the Elizabeth Warren version or other version. Nancy Pelosi gets a version of it through the House of Representatives. It comes to your desk. Do you veto it?
I would veto anything that delays providing the security and the certainty of health care being available now. If they got that through and by some miracle, there was an epiphany that occurred, and some miracle occurred that said, okay, it's passed, then you got to look at the cost. I want to know, how did they find the $35 trillion? What is that doing? Is it going to significantly raise taxes on the middle class, which it will? What's going to happen? Look, my opposition isn't to the principle that you should have Medicare. I mean, everybody, healthcare should be a right in America. My opposition relates to whether or not, A, it's doable, two, what the cost is, and what the consequences for the rest of the budget are. How are you going to find $35 trillion over the next 10 years without having profound impacts on everything from taxes for middle class and working class people, as well as the impact on the rest of the budget?
What is going to happen to rally?
It's funny how he talks about, oh, it's going to affect the budget. And yet the Pentagon cannot even pass a simple audit. They cannot account for over $20 trillion. And you want to tell me, oh, well, they're going to be paying all this money for healthcare. By the way, we're already paying trillions of dollars for healthcare already. In fact, it will actually save the United States citizens money if we were to have a single-payer healthcare system. Now, I'm of the opinion that we should have a nationalized healthcare system, but a single-payer healthcare system is still a step in the right direction. But here's the problem. That was a cop-out. That was a cop-out. That's what's so horrible about it. Because what happened in March of 2020? We dumped $4 trillion into the markets just to make sure that the corporations were still solvent because of the pandemic. Because of the pandemic and the recession that happened under it, right? Let me share with you guys also this gem too. This is Joe Biden. Joe Biden says, it would be an insult to my dead son for everyone to have health care. The former vice president released an ad invoking family tragedy and attacking rivals who have plans to ensure everyone has access to health care. He literally said that it would be an insult to his dead son for everybody else to have health care, to not suffer like his son did. So when people talk about that they don't feel sorry for Joe Biden, now you see why. This war criminal has cancer now. And there's a lot of people who are not shedding a tear for him. They won't shed a tear for him because of all the horrible harm he's done to the rest of this country. And this harm that he's done has been for the past 50 years, 40, 50 years. And so, no. A lot of people aren't going to be saying thoughts and prayers to him. A lot of people aren't going to be wishing him well. Because when he was well, he did nothing but harm the rest of us. He did harm to many of us, and also is a co-conspirator, is an accessory to genocide by giving the money and weapons to people like Benjamin Netanyahu. Not to mention voting for the Iraq War. Not to mention the mass incarceration of Black people in this country. So, it's hard to feel sorry for somebody like that, especially when they refuse to apologize for the actions that they've taken. Ask Joe Biden if he feels any regret for supporting Israel during this genocide. Go ahead, ask him. He'll repeat the same old talking point. Israel has a right to defend itself. Meanwhile, I'm literally seeing on social media babies, their bodies being blown apart and having to be put back together just so that their parents can identify them. Biden is a war criminal. Sometimes I wonder if putting him in the Hague would be too merciful. But that's the breaking news. A war criminal has cancer. Sucks to be him, I guess. Thank you very much to everybody for tuning in. I appreciate you guys for staying with me for this special report. Please make sure to give a like on your way out. Appreciate it very much. I hope you guys have yourself a great day. Thank you to all the patrons on Patreon as well. And you guys have yourself a wonderful day. I will see you guys in the next one. Take care. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.